我想同你打翻場。
媽，幫我嚟啊！我嚟啊！
咩事先？
周房冇乜走啊，你點做嘢㗎？去入翻啲啦。
頂你個肺，講緊嘢。我叫你阿哥。2年前我哋嗰一場比賽你冇嚟到，同唔到你打，我覺得好可惜。不過今日你冇資格。
Hey guys, it's Will with Hong Kong Cinema Appreciation Society, back with another Blu-ray review. You know what time it is, coronavirus lockdown super special, still at home. I'll probably be here for a while. I should probably stop saying that because I don't think it needs to be said at this point. At first I wasn't sure how long I'd be at home for, but it looks like it's going to be a long time. So we better just get used to it. Welcome to all our new subscribers. We've had, over the past couple months, we've added like 200 subs. Yay! That's awesome, and I thank you so much. Especially a huge thank you to people who share our stuff. Like, that really means a lot to me because you're going out of your way to tell other people about what I'm doing. And you know, Mike, who edits all the videos with me, and he runs 80s Nerdgasm, but he's like a big part of this channel too because he does all of the technical stuff that I'm not very good at. So from both of us, thank you very much to all the new subscribers. If you're not subscribed and you're here and you're watching this video and you like it, please do sub. That's a huge help. Thank you so much. You could turn on notifications too, so you get updates every time we release a new video. What am I here today to review? It's actually my first ever Eureka release. It's Johnnie To's Throwdown, hell yeah. This is the Blu-ray release, and again, if you didn't watch the video where I talk about how I got that, a friend that I have made over Instagram, who is like an old school, totally legit Hong Kong cinema and Jackie Chan fan. He's actually friends with the guy, one of the guys who does the director's commentary on this edition of this movie, and has been friends with him for years. And he also told me that he was consulted on the Criterion Collection release of Police Story, which I have right there. Police Story 1 and Police Story 2. And I will be reviewing that eventually. I know I keep threatening to review that, but I want to do that and the Super Cop Hong Kong Rescue release all in a row. And I keep getting like individual films in the mail. I'm like, well, it's easier to watch one movie than it is to watch 3 movies in a row. So I keep getting interrupted, but it's right now that's third on my list. So hopefully very soon that'll be coming. So what is Throwdown? This is the Eureka. It's called Masters of Cinema series, which is, I guess, their their series of films by great directors, maestros of cinema, if you want to call it that. And I'm hugely impressed by this release, I will tell you that. I'm a big Johnnie To fan. I was going to take out like my Johnnie To collection and show it off to you here, but that seemed just a little bit excessive. But I think I've got Election, Triad Election, Exiled, Full-Time Killer, Drug War. I actually have 2 copies of Election. I have the Tartan Asia DVD and I have the Hong Kong Blu-ray release. I have Vengeance, PTU. I have like maybe 10 or so Johnnie To movies on DVD or Blu-ray. So I'm a really big Johnnie To fan. I've seen maybe 15 or 20 of his movies. I'm not exactly sure what the count is. The first Johnnie To movies I saw were, I think the first one I saw was Election, like in 2005 or 6. And then I just kind of went through from there and watched whatever was coming out, went back and found older stuff that I hadn't seen. And so even Johnnie To films, like I really liked Life Without Principle. For the most part, I really enjoyed 3, which the ending is a bit shaky in that movie, but up until the ending, I really liked that movie. Some people really don't like that movie. Anyway, so there you go. I really like Johnnie To. And this is just an incredible release from Eureka. Let me just show you It's a 4K remaster, am I correct? Yeah, so 4K remaster. And if you know Johnnie To, like if you've seen Johnnie To's films, you know that he has like a very clean, clear, precise, pristine visual style. And this like really incredible HD presentation really, really shows that off to the max. Like I don't think, I have the Blu-ray of Drug War, but it's not like a collector's boutique Blu-ray label type Blu-ray, so like a lot of I don't think that they put as much attention into that release as they did into this one, and this really, really shows off how crisp and clean his style is. So there's a couple essays in here. Here you can see this little booklet here. There's The Long Shadow of Sanshiro Sugata by David West, and so I will be doing a different video in which I talk about this film and Kurosawa, because I'm a huge Kurosawa fan and I have a lot to say about that, and it would not fit into the length of like my standard Blu-ray reviews. There's the poster for Sancho Sugata, the Japanese poster. And then you also have The Art of Violence in Johnnie To's Throwdown by Simon Ward, and both of these were written in 2020. And so, you know, if you're a big fan of these, the essays that come in these booklets, this is a great photo of like behind the scenes of the cast and Johnnie To and stuff. These are really well done essays. I mean, that, you know, I would argue that the vast majority of essays that you find in booklets from quality labels like Criterion, Eureka. I mean, again, this is my only Eureka release, but based on this release, seems like a very quality label. Arrow, 88 Films, obviously I love. You can see like five or six of their movies over here. I think they're all of like high, you know, there's not like too much variation in like, oh, that one essay was great, but that other one was complete crap. You know, like if you like that stuff, they're all pretty good, and this is no exception to that. I will say, completely unrelated to this, but the greatest essay I've ever gotten in the booklet of a movie I just read about a week ago. It's the Criterion Collection release of Solaris, the Tarkovsky film, and it is like a piece by Kurosawa about Tarkovsky and meeting Tarkovsky when he was in the Soviet Union doing Der Uzala, and at that time Tarkovsky was making Solaris, and so Kurosawa was on the set of Solaris. It's really, really cool. Anyway, as you can see, I'm really geeking out about Kurosawa, and so so let me talk to you about this. The presentation, like I said, of the film is incredible. It's probably the best I've ever seen a Johnnie To movie look. If you're a big fan of Johnnie To, you absolutely have to pick this up. It's a Region B release, which means it's UK, and so it will play on standard commercial European Blu-ray players. But if you're outside of Europe, so if you're in the Americas, if you're in Asia, then you'll need... I'm just realizing I don't actually know, like Africa, the Middle East, India. Like, I don't know what region those areas are. I know that I think the Americas are Region A. So North America and South America and like the Bahamas and stuff. And then Region B is Europe, and Region C I know is like East Asia. So I don't know. I don't know what Australia is either, to be honest with you. So there you go. But if you don't have a Region B player, then you will need a multi-region or region-free player in order to play this film. So to talk to you about the bonus features. So you have Cantonese audio with English subtitles, and then there's also there's an English dub on here if you'd rather watch it with that on there. There are two feature-length audio commentaries. One is from Frank Zheng, who is an Asian film expert, and I think that he worked in distribution for a long time and is involved in film festivals, so like the New York Asian Film Festival or Asian American Film Festival. He's like an organizer of that, and he's a facilitator and like a distributor, and one of these people who's like heavily involved in the film industry. I think he's from Hong Kong and lived in Hong Kong for a long while, and so he knows a lot of people. And so, like, he knows a lot of the actors who are in this film. Like, he knows them personally. He's worked with them before. He's hung out with them. He's met Johnnie To before. And then the other audio commentary is Rick Myers, who is, if you don't know who Rick Myers is, he's, if you read his Wikipedia, I think it says that he's, like, one of the people who is most responsible for Western audiences' acceptance of like martial arts and Asian cinema as like legitimate forms of cinematic expression, which is weird that like you would need someone to legitimize that, but it's amazing that that's what it says on his Wikipedia. Like, he's absolutely legit, and he knows Johnnie To actually. He seems to know him better than Frank Zheng does, and he talks in his commentary track about like knowing Johnnie To and what it's like to be around Johnnie To and Johnnie To's impressions of his own films and stuff like that. So that's really cool. I'm going to talk about the commentary tracks in just a second. I'm just going to go through all the bonus features here and give you my impression of the other ones. So archival interview with director Johnnie To, it's 40 minutes long. That's a really fantastic interview. So why don't I just talk about that now? Johnnie To goes into tons of stuff on that. He talks about like growing up in Hong Kong in the 70s. And if you're familiar with this film, so if you don't know the plot of the movie, basically there's Louis Koo plays this guy who was like the golden boy of judo in Hong Kong. He was like an amazing martial artist, and he now is like an alcoholic who runs a bar and doesn't do judo and just drinks all the time and is like in debt to all these people. And it really has this kind of like film noir-esque thing of like, you know, like the Humphrey Bogart type, like I was an idealistic youth, but now I'm like this washed up older guy. And then Aaron Kwok plays like a young up and coming judo practitioner who comes and challenges the Louis Koo character, and their lives become intertwined. And then Cherry Ping is in it, and she is a woman who wants to be a singer. Like her ambition is to be a famous singer, and so she gets a gig singing in the nightclub that Louis Koo owns. And then there's like various triad figures involved, and like the judo sensei to Louis Koo character, he comes into it, and because he's getting older and needs someone to take over his dojo, and so you have all these conflicts that come into it. And so Johnny To talks about being inspired by the Sanshiro Sugata TV series that was on in Hong Kong when he was a kid. And also by loving Kurosawa. And really, he said that when he started making films is when he really came to love Kurosawa. Like, he saw Kurosawa's films when he was younger, and he saw them when he was in film school, and he saw them like a couple times throughout his life. But when he started making movies himself is when he really came to realize the genius of Kurosawa. And he wanted to make this movie as like an homage to Kurosawa, basically, and try to capture the spirit that he saw in Kurosawa's films. And he also talks about how he works with actors. And on this, it's interesting. He talked about with Louis Koo, for instance, Louis Koo naturally speaks really quickly. And so he basically just kind of like peeled away these layers of his personality to get to the core of who he wanted the character to be. So he'd be like, speak more slowly, like move in silence, move in shadow. Like, and the characters speak in these very kind of, one of the observations that Frank Zhang actually makes on his commentary track is the characters speak in these very clipped, short, repetitive phrases that almost sounds like Japanese. Because if you're familiar with Japanese, Japanese is a syllabic language, so that means that it's not individual letters that you hear, and it's not tones like you hear in Chinese. It's like chunks of letters said in a row, right? So like Akira Kurosawa, right, is Kurosawa's name. Ki, Ra, R-A, those are the syllables, and then Kurosawa is Kurosawa. And so it's broken down like that, rather than broken down into individual letters with accents and stuff like that, like you have in Western languages, right? And so oftentimes Japanese, especially like when someone like Toshiro Mifune is speaking, it sounds kind of guttural and staccato. Whereas with Mandarin and Cantonese, they often sound, especially I think with Cantonese, more like lilting and melodic, and almost like more poetic, if you could say that. Like it flows more than Japanese, which just sounds more of like a rhythmic language, if that makes any sense. But the observation that Frank Zhang makes that's really interesting is that Johnny To is in a way having his actors speak Cantonese as though they are speaking Japanese. And that's kind of it's just interesting, like that because it's an homage to Kurosawa, right? They're doing these, Johnny To is doing these things with his actors. But anyway, he talks about growing up in Hong Kong in the 70s, and, you know, like there are arcades in these movies, like the characters hang out in arcades, and that was like a big thing in Hong Kong in the 70s, was like going and hanging out at the arcade with your friends and stuff like that. And really particularly, Johnny To talks about the attitude of Hong Kong in the 70s. All these people who pulled themselves up by their bootstraps and worked hard and achieved their dreams, and how this movie to him is really about people who have dreams and never give up on them and spend their whole lives working towards them. And that spirit of never giving up, and that spirit of a community. And because this film does not have a villain, and Johnny To speaks about this, he didn't want the film to have a villain, and he didn't want to put pressures on the characters in the way that you would in a traditional crime story or like thriller or action film narrative. He wanted to have it play like a drama. And so in having the movie play like a drama, and by removing those pressures from the characters, you get to examine them more in almost like a documentary-like style. Not really like documentary-like style, but in this way of looking at them in how they kind of find ways to remove the obstacles towards their dreams, rather than like pushing through like, I have to get this one thing, this is my goal, this stands in my way. And you know what I mean? It's more about the ways in which people approach their lives and solve the problems of their lives to achieve their goals. So it's more of a drama. And there's actually a lot of like comedy in this film too. Not like broad comedy, but like a kind of a cheeky, deadpan sense of humor and a sense of optimism. And Frank Zheng in his commentary actually, which is something that never would have occurred to me, so I'm really glad I watched his commentary, talks about how Hong Kong had been like completely economically devastated by SARS when Johnny To was making this film, and so in a way, this film feels like a pull yourself up by the bootstraps, kind of like, we can do this kind of like message to the people of Hong Kong, like things are going to get better. We did it before in the 70s, we'll do it again now. And it's a very sentimental and very moving film in a way that, to me, being like, when I first saw this movie, having been familiar with Johnny To's crime movies rather than like the comedies that he's made before, I wasn't expecting that when I first saw this film. And it's really heartening, and it's like it's an uplifting and very sweet message. And so, to talk about the commentaries very briefly, Frank Zheng's commentary was recorded very recently, I think in March of this year. And his approach is to kind of look at this movie retrospectively and analyze it and kind of try to talk about the actors, the characters, and it's a very thoughtful, introspective, analytical dive into the movie that I really, really loved. And that was a great commentary track. I'm really glad that I watched it. And I learned a lot from it. He knows Louis Koo pretty well, the actor, and he talks about how Louis Koo actually paid for surgery for one of the other cast members, and then eventually like that cast member's insurance reimbursed them for the surgery, and Louis Koo was paid back, but like he fronted the cost basically for the guy to have surgery. He's like a really nice person. Everyone really likes him. Apparently really likes working with him. He's a big Star Wars fan and toy collector, and he has a warehouse just for his toys. So that's kind of a cool little fact. And then the Rick Meyer commentary is like a combo commentary of like Rick Meyer and Frank Zheng. And so Frank Zheng and Rick Meyer recorded a commentary in 2004, 2005 for a DVD release of this movie, and their commentary track on here it kind of threw me off because it was a little bit confusing, because some of it seems to be really recent, like Rick Meyer went and revisited the film and recorded sections, but then some of it was definitely recorded years ago, and I might be incorrect in how I'm interpreting this. I may have just kind of missed how they explained it in the as they're speaking during the commentary track, but it seems like it was like some of it is older and recycled because it's like useful observations on like this actor is this person, that actor is that person, stuff like that. And then some of it seems more recent, but I might be incorrect about that. It might just be an archival commentary track, because there's definitely stuff in there from years ago. So I'm just going to look at my notes real quick, because I wrote a ton of notes on this release, as you can see here. And these are all my notes just from this Blu-ray release. And I just want to make sure that there's nothing I'm forgetting here. So the Rick Meyer one. And like I said, Rick Myers knows Johnny To, so he's like got a lot of interesting insights about how, for instance, he talks about how Johnny To talks about his own movies and how he actually very rarely, if never, does commentary tracks, because he loves making movies so much that he's always busy making movies and he never has the time to do stuff like that. He doesn't do a lot of interviews. He doesn't do a lot of public appearances. So that was really interesting to hear about. The balloon scene. So this is an interesting thing, but the balloon scene, Johnny To says in his interview, if you're familiar with the movie, you'll know the balloon scene is about people helping one another. And that's kind of what I was talking about with that communal spirit, the post-SARS thing, the 1970s thing, and the way that it observes these characters going about their daily lives. There's a scene where three people like sit on each other's shoulders to grab this balloon that's floating away, and that's kind of like the balloon is the dream, and they're all helping each other achieve that dream. So I think that's a good place to end. This is the Eureka Blu-ray release of Johnny To's fantastic 2004 drama, comedy, martial arts film, whatever you want to call it. Throwdown. It's a really great movie. It's a really great release. I highly recommend this one. I'm going to put a link in the description below to where you can buy this or learn more about it. My name is Will. This has been Hong Kong Cinema Appreciation Society, and we will see you next time.